Hello. Happy rainy Sunday. Let me make sure I have this going right. Okay, looks right. Let me check one thing here, since nobody's logged on at the moment. Okay. All right, so welcome to our first Sunday Sangha. I'm aware that this format might not be for everyone, this type of event, and so just feel free to drop on Sundays if it kind of resonates with your path right now. If not, totally okay. My purpose in doing it is that because we have discontinued the theme around our normal moon circles, where we're sort of informative and we're learning on a certain topic, I wanted to allow for a platform where we still have some moments where we can evolve in our information as well. And that way, this is sort of in a condensed, just like half an hour or something a week, where we can evolve together and continue to learn new information. So while our moon circles are going to be more about togetherness from now on for the most part, and various events like the cacao ceremony and the red tent and things like that, Sundays we'll have a brief time where we can, learn about some different spiritual topics too. So I'm going to begin with a prayer. If you log on a little bit later and you missed some of this, then there should be a replay available, and I will also replay it by uploading it to YouTube as well. So let's start with a little prayer to get started. We call upon our well ancestors today, our spirit guides, and source energy, the energy of male and female within each of us, that we may be grounded today, that our hearts may be open to learn new information or learn something in a different way, that we may connect through this new style of discussion, and that you sit with us during this time, balance our energies, and give us a moment to focus on our breath and on ourselves and on our own journeys. So it is. Okay, we're going to begin many of our sanghas with a chant, mantra, that sort of thing. And for our first mantra practice, I chose one of the most popular mantras, the most common that you'll find in Hinduism, in any sort of Eastern practice of that nature. And that mantra is Aum Namah Shivaya. Maybe you've heard this during your yoga practice or in your studies. And I want to discuss why we'll be chanting it for a moment. So, first of all, the pronunciation. This isn't Om, like M-O. It's A-U-M. And the mouth will make a different sort of movement with that. So when you open your mouth, you have Ah. And then the U and the M. Om. So you have sort of a A-H-U-M-A sort of sound. Aum. So with that, the next word being Namah. And it's said sort of as like a quick 2-syllable. Shivaya, we draw out. Shivaya. Literally translated, it's a veneration to Lord Shiva. And the purpose of it, however, it's more than the literal translation when you are working with mantras, always. It raises the energy levels through the use of the 5 elements. Na, meaning earth. Ma, meaning water. Si is fire. Va, air, like the word vata in Ayurveda. Ya, meaning ether or spirit. Lord Shiva typically represents death in a lot of ways, but in this instance, he's not representing death to the body and to life. He's representing death of excesses. He brings alive joyousness and celebration and really the true meaning of being alive. So he's cutting away the ego, the lower frequencies that we sometimes get stuck in. And so this mantra works by tempering the ego, animosity, and it mitigates worry from an overburdened mind. So we're going to get started now that I've sort of gone through the meaning of that mantra, and the intentionality behind it is not necessarily to only focus on the words. We focus on the words to keep our headspace in meditation, but the intention is what counts, the meaning within the heart, and knowing that what this mantra means for you is about grounding your frequency to what is going to be most and best serving of your life at this point. So mantras are an easy way to raise the frequency to a level that it's difficult to do in silent meditation at times, especially when you're beginning out, because our brain takes these rabbit trails. And so the mantras keep us focused, but also raise our energy to a frequency that allows us to serve better ourselves and others. So we're going to do a 3-minute mantra chanting session here, and I will do the first few with you aloud, and then we will continue the rest of that 3 minutes in a silent meditation where you can say it out loud where you are, you can say it in your head, whatever feels good for you. And so the way it's going to sound is like this. Aum Namah Shivaya. Aum Namah Shivaya. I'm going to set our bell here, and we'll get started. Aum Namah Shivaya. 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 Now feel free to continue until you hear the bell. Om Namah Shivaya. I hope that that may serve you in a future practice that you're doing by yourself, if you care to do that one in the future as well, whenever you feel like you might need it. So we're going to move on to our main study here. I'm hoping to keep these to just about 30-45 minutes, depending on what's going on. I'm keeping things brief because of having to do sort of like an introduction for our first one. So we're going to be taking a lot of our lessons from A Course in Miracles, which you have heard me mention before, probably a few times. The Enlightenment Bible, as it were. And we're going to be working specifically with the workbook. I don't think we'll be reading too much from the text or the manual. The workbook contains a lesson for each day for 365 days. I'm just going to kind of read some information that I sort of highlighted I wanted to bring up. A Course in Miracles is a channeled work, similar to the way Abraham Hicks' work is looked at. Abraham Hicks being a collective of souls or spirit guides that channeled this information through Esther Hicks, for example. And so Abraham is not specifically one person, it's a collective of souls that sent channeled information. And that is what happened with this book, which was written in the 70s. It was channeled through, can't remember her name off the top of my head, Catherine something, I think. Oh, sorry, Helen Schuckman and William Thetford. And I believe Helen did the bulk of the channeling on this. So it was not published under any author's name. It was published under the Foundation for Inner Peace. So that's just a brief description of kind of where this information came from so that you know. So there's one for each day of the year, and it's important that you not do more than one lesson in a day. It's meant to be a lesson that you meditate throughout the day, as things occur, as things come up, and you're just ruminating on what this message is. Because a lot of times the messages are difficult to swallow. The lessons feel sometimes inflammatory, I guess is a good word. You know, sometimes it's obvious, like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then other times you're like, I don't agree with that. I don't like that, you know. And it's important to let that come through you, these obstacles that we feel around these lessons. You can take more than one day to do a lesson, just not less than. So the idea behind it says this. You will find many of the ideas in the workbook hard to believe, and others may seem quite startling. This does not matter. You are merely asked to apply the ideas as you're directed to do. You're not asked to judge them at all. You're asked only to use them. It is their use that will give them meaning to you and will show you that they are true. Remember only this. You need not believe the ideas. You need not accept them, and you need not even welcome them. Some of them you may actively resist. None of this will matter or decrease their efficacy, but do not allow yourself to make exceptions in applying the ideas the workbook contains, and whatever your reaction to the ideas may be, use them. Nothing more than that is required. So that's a bit of a guidebook on how to apply these lessons. I will add that the lessons build. And I'm just doing this introduction because we're going to continue doing them. I won't do this introduction every time. But the lessons will build. So you will get lesson 1 will be very simple and etc. And then the lesson 2 builds on that previous precept. And it continues on until you're sort of following this pathway to like this mind-opening way of looking at the world and changing your thoughts and perceptions around the world. It is the purpose of this workbook to train your mind to think along the lines the text sets forth. It trains your mind in a systematic way to a different perception of everyone and everything in the world. The exercises are planned to help you generalize the lessons so that you will understand that each of them is equally applicable to everyone and everything you see. The only general rules to be observed throughout then are, first, that the exercises be practiced with great specificity, as will be indicated. This will help you to generalize the ideas involved to every situation in which you find yourself, and to everyone and everything in it. Second, be sure that you do not decide for yourself that there are some people, situations, or things to which the ideas are inapplicable. This will interfere with transfer of training. The very nature of true perception is that it has no limits. It is the opposite of the way you see now. So we're going to get started on Lesson 1. Lesson 1 is this thought. Nothing I see in this room, on this street, from this window, in this place, means anything. Nothing I see in this room means anything. I so much want to spoil what lessons 2 and 3 are to help this make sense. But that's not for me to do. So that'll be weeks 2 and 3. Just have to wait. But this is the lesson for this day, this week. Nothing I see in this room means anything. Now look slowly around you and practice applying this idea very specifically to wherever you are. For example, this table does not mean anything. This chair does not mean anything. This hand does not mean anything. This foot does not mean anything. This pen does not mean anything. Then look further away from your immediate area, and you can apply the idea to a wider range of things. This door does not mean anything. This body does not mean anything. The lamp does not mean anything. The sign does not mean anything. The shadow does not mean anything. This shadow. Notice that these statements are not arranged in any order, and make no allowances for differences in the kinds of things to which they are applied. That is the purpose of the exercise. The statement should merely be applied to anything you see. It's indiscriminate. As you practice the idea for the day, use it totally indiscriminately. Do not attempt to apply it to everything you see, for these exercises should not become ritualistic. Only be sure that nothing you see is specifically excluded. You shouldn't look at something and feel, oh, but this thing does mean something. Whether it's a sentimental item, or a sacred text, or a pet. Trust me on this one. I know it feels uncomfortable, especially when you're like, I do not mean anything, but it's not in the tense of how we would discuss this earthly existence. It's beyond that. So just remember to not be mindless about the observations you're making, but also do not exclude anything and be indiscriminate. One thing is like another as far as the application of the idea is concerned. Each of the first 3 lessons should not be done more than twice each day, preferably morning and evening, nor should they be attempted for more than a minute or so, unless that entails a sense of hurry. A comfortable sense of leisure is essential. So I would invite you to sort of just take a look around. This mouthwash doesn't mean anything. This water doesn't mean anything. This voice doesn't mean anything. And start from there. So that is what you'll be meditating on for this day or week, or whenever you're watching this. And that is the end of our core lesson today. I hope that was interesting for you. Okay, so lastly, I said at the end of each Sangha, we're going to finish out by discussing a crystal of the week, maybe occasionally a herb of the week. And this week I chose Selenite. Selenite is very special in the crystal world, and I have some examples here to show you. So this would be what you might call a pillar. And And you can, I think it's even picking it up on camera, how just like angelic sort of it is. Like this is how you would picture like the Fortress of Solitude. Like it's these sort of ice crystals, you know. And then you would have a smaller one. This one would be like a selenite bar. You can get them smaller, I'm sure. But this is the smallest one I have, just to show you that the overall appearance remains the same. Just the size and different shapes. You can see like on the pillar it's rather jagged and, you know, sort of mountainous looking. And then you can get also a selenite wand. You can even get a selenite crystal, like how a salt lamp is. You can get a selenite lamp as well. Those are pretty neat. And you may remember this if you were in our Tantra circle. I used this for cleansing the auras and the energies around the circle. So, selenite. Excuse me. Alright, selenite is unique because, like most crystals, I will say it is named for the Greek goddess of the moon, Selene. And this is telling because it works in a similar way that the moon does on other crystals. So like other crystals, you charge them under the moonlight, or they often need to be cleansed. You use them to balance a specific frequency or a specific energetic or physical challenge. Selenite is different than all of those because just the properties that it contains is that it's like the moon. It is self-cleansing, self-healing, purifying. And so, say you didn't charge your crystals under the moon, but you feel like the energy from one is very low or something. That in that instance, you would use something like a selenite bar, like this, and you could set your crystals on top of the selenite, and it recharges them. It cleanses them and recharges them, which normally those are separate steps in the process with crystals. You know, you might need to normally use sage or whatever herb bundle you're using to cleanse one, and then you might feel you need to recharge it by putting it under the moon or salt or water, burying it in the earth, and then you activate it. And you'd still want to activate your crystals, but this does the work of the purification, the cleansing, and the recharging, which is really unique and special. Selenite acts as sort of like an all-in-one crystal. You'll see some other clear type crystals, like you might take quartz, for example, and those types like amplify energy. Whereas this, it almost is a toner. It balances the energy in whatever way is needed. It's the adaptogenic crystal. So you might use something like this, a long bar, or they have them as like icicles too, where there's sort of a hole already drilled in them and you can hang them. This is one you do not want to get wet, by the way. It will sort of flake off, like, I don't know if you could see sort of like that salty powder right there. So you don't want to get these wet. So these types you would use to put around your house to balance the home energy anywhere, or to use as a bar for placing crystals for cleansing and charging, or you would use this in ceremony or ritual. So this would be an excellent crystal to use in something like a cord cutting ritual, because it really just brings all of that out of balance frequency into proper proportion. It works more so with the crown chakra, It's basically the crystal of light. It fills you with light. It fills your energy centers in whatever way is needed. And so these are very useful for a Reiki practice as well. Now something like this, because you can't set anything on it, it's too big to wear, this would be the type of thing you'd mostly want to set around your home. You might even do the four corners of your home. A lot of ritual or spell work, you might use something in four corners of the home. So you have your four directions, or really the parameters of your home even. And selenite would be very good for that because it, or I should say the pillar of selenite would be very good for that because it will really be the main thing it's useful for since it's so bulky. And then you have the smaller ones. Now this kind of bar, I can easily set a crystal or so on top of it, but this bar is an example of a smaller selenite. So whatever size you find, these would be the good type to wear, to crystal wrap, to macrame wrap, and keeping one on you at all times keeps your energies very balanced, and it keeps you cleansed. We often take on that negative energy of people around us, that the lower frequencies, I should say. You know, we all kind of know one of those people where we feel drained just having been around them. And so oftentimes we'll wear a black stone like obsidian, shungite, onyx, etc. So however, those stones the black stones need to be cleansed very frequently because they take on so much of that energy and are so protective. You know, maybe if you just don't have time to be like, you know, blessing your crystals all the time or charging them all the time, or you wore it and the full moon's not for like another month or something, you know, it's a good option to have a selenite. It's not protective in the same way as a black stone, and it's not grounding in the same way as a black stone. However, it keeps all of your energy centers, all of your chakras in alignment. And so we have those days sometimes where we have a super open heart place, or our digestion is just wonky and we don't know why, and you know, our Agni is messed up and our, you know, just our whole solar plexus feels uncomfortable. Or maybe we have some, you know, issues around our sexuality in a specific time that month. And this, while it specifically works with the crown and the areas of our light body, it keeps everything balanced. And that is what makes this, in part, such a gift on earth to have, in my opinion, medicine like this. So, let's see, is there anything else I wanted to add to selenite? I'll probably think of it later. But really, I would suggest it for especially charging your crystals. I would not keep it in the sunlight too long. Like I said, I wouldn't get it wet. But, you know, you can keep it somewhere special. You know, muted light is fine, but you can use your bar to cleanse something you want to wear, or you just saw someone that like was an energy vampire, put your black stones on it, and also use it in any rituals. And I will just show you kind of what I did in our last, in our Tantra ceremony, our event, where I used it on the energetic body. So this would be a moment where you'd sort of get quiet, take your breaths, and really vibe into the energetic fields around you. And if you really listen, oftentimes you will likely be able to sense that auric field around you where our energy really lies and projects. And so you might use this crystal like I was doing to sort of scan the energy field, you might say. So you would go down every part of your body, you know, back and front, and you would also, you know, do one of these. And it just sort of is a completely, I mean, grounding isn't the right word. I want to say grounding because of how it brings everything into balance, but it's not grounding in the same sense that a black stone would be. If anything, it would be more energy giving. So hopefully that is a good introduction to selenite if you haven't worked with it much. If you have worked with it a ton, feel free to add anything that you also think of in the comments regarding selenite or any of this. So that is it for our first Sunday Sangha. I did pretty good, 31 minutes. Pretty on the nose there. So thank you for joining me, especially to Casey, who is here live. Danke, and I look forward to next week, where we will do A Course in Miracles Lesson 2, and I will pick a brand new mantra for you to try out as well. So I hope everyone has a great week, and blessings to you for joining me. Have a good day.